the words that you say matter. And so when we give advice, we got to start. I think it's important to start praying, right? And so I start praying before I do videos. I want to say the right thing. I want to say something that's going to be helpful, that's going to be purposeful, that's going to be impactful, that's going to help somebody, change somebody's life, make somebody think about things differently. And so I was talking to my stylist, and she means well, right? I love her. We've known each other 20 plus years. And she was asking me about my story and certain things I haven't shared because, you don't know if you can share with people. Some things are, maybe embarrassing. Some things you don't know how people are going to take it, and so we all have a story to share. We all have skeletons in our closet, right? And so I was telling her that I had given birth at 17 or 18 and 19, two boys, and I had married someone who was 10 years older than me. So I met him when I was 15. He was 25. And it was a very tumultuous relationship. There were a lot of issues. And so I wasn't able to emotionally handle or know how to maneuver the situation because I was a kid, right? So I had these two kids, and I had another kid when I tried to get my tubes tied after I had my child at 19, and they wouldn't let me. They said that I was too young, that you had to be 21. And so before I could get my tubes tied, I was pregnant again, had a child at 22. And she thought that, so I bought a brand new car without knowing how to drive. I just figured it out based on watching other people drive. And so, she thought that this story of me having these kids when I was young and just these different things that happened in my life, she thought this was more valuable to share with people than anything else that I talk about. And, to each his own, right? I think it's valuable when you give somebody advice like that, because some people who are not in tune with who they are or who God made them to be or what God has spoken to them, it could really be a deterrent, right? It could really make you feel a certain type of way. And so it bothered me for probably about 5 seconds. But I think it's important that when we give advice or when we say words, when we say something to somebody, we got to realize that words are weights. They can really weigh on you. They can really matter. It can really change the trajectory of somebody's life. So if we're going to change somebody's life, if our words have the power, and God says they do, right? Death and life, the power of the tongue. So if my words have that much weight, I want to make sure they the right words, right? I want to make sure I'm saying the right things in the right way at the right time to the right person. And sometimes we can jump and give people our opinion without really looking at the situation as a whole, really like laying it out, really paying attention. And so I don't know what she knows about me. I don't know if she watches my videos. I don't know any of that. I do know that, she knows I'm an author. I wrote 23 books years ago. And so I do know she knows that part of me. But I believe that we all have value. We all have something to offer. And we all have gifts with an S, talents with an S, skills with an S. And so we got to be careful about telling somebody that they should pursue something and not something else. And I get it. I am much more relatable if I tell you that I've been married twice. I've filed bankruptcy twice. I have 5 children, that I've had 3 miscarriages within probably less than 2-year period of time. I'm probably more relatable. People probably can understand if I tell them that, these different things have happened to me. But I believe that it's important that we share things that are going to be beneficial to the people that we're called to serve, right? Because if I tell certain people, this might not be helpful. The people that I'm called to serve, they might not care. Of course they may, because people want to know more about you. But I think it's just important. We got to make sure that when we give advice, that we make sure it's the right advice, make sure that it's the right timing, that we really have. I'm thinking more now about when we give advice, we got to really make sure we got some evidence, right? We got to make sure that we understand, because sometimes we give advice with a half-told story. We give advice with no story. We give advice and there's so many things that we don't even know anything about, right? And so advice, we all can give it, right? But we just got to make sure that we're looking at it in its totality. We know the story. We can really give good advice that's going to help somebody, that's going to change your life, that's not going to be destructive or deterring or discouraging. We want to make sure that we're giving people advice that's really going to help them. And so, with some evidence, right? If we can say, okay, I believe, like she would have said, I believe you should talk about your life story, because I believe it'll be helpful in this, and this. Because when I look at my life story, it looks boring, right? I'm thinking like, who would care? Like, who would want to know? Like, what would it matter? And so, and I get it that somebody who is as shy as I am, God has blessed, like I can look over my life and I can see the favor of God. I get it. I get that part. But I think that I can show the goodness of God in other ways, not just by telling you, these different things. Of course, if you're shy, I always tell people, if I can be successful, anybody can be successful, right? I get people on my videos who say I talk too fast. I get people who say, like my husband, he'll say, you talk around the situation. You provide evidence. You give us a lot of information before you get to the point. So anyway, for me, if I can be successful, anybody can be successful. I came from a small town. I had a child when I got pregnant at 17, I had a child when I was 18, another child when I was 19, 3 children by the time I was 22. So, I mean, God just blessed me, right? I've been tested in areas where I would cry when I got up in front of people to speak. And in case you don't know, that's part of what I do. I teach, I train, I speak. And so this is part of what I do every single day. And if you had asked me 10 years ago, I was still standing up and I would still cry. I would still have tears in my eyes. I would still be emotionally upset before I got up to speak to somebody. I would still have, a tear. I would still be like really, really nervous. And I would still do it because there was nobody else. They had chosen me. They saw something in me. God, allowed me to be able to do it, and I would do it. And then I just kept on doing it until I didn't cry anymore. I'm still nervous. Probably not as bad as I was, but I'm still nervous. And so the show must go on. So I just pray and then go on and speak. I prepare as much as I can, because preparing helps with the nerves. It helps with, you're not as nervous. You might not have any tears, but you still just continue to go on. But I know for a fact that no matter what, if I can be successful, anybody can be successful, because I had so many things against me. So many things against me. And you pray, and then you do the work, and then you learn, you fail, you learn, you make mistakes, you learn, you take the feedback and you make the changes, and you just keep going forward. And you're talking to yourself, you're saying things that are positive to yourself. You're I guess hyping yourself up. You're doing these things. You're speaking the word of God over your life, and you're just one step after another. You just keep going. No matter what it looks like, you just keep going. And so advice matters. And it really made me instantly more cognizant about what I say to people, how I say it to people. And I start praying like, God, please, if I give advice, if I say something, please don't let it come off as judgmental, right? Please let me say the words that you want me to say, when you want me to say them, how you want me to say. Don't let me just pop off at the mouth saying something because I'm out of emotion, right? I don't want to do that. I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing. And so I believe, I was just reading this morning in Proverbs about constructive criticism. So I think it's important that we're able to share things with people, but I think we got to make sure that we've prayed about it, and that we're saying the right things, that that's something that's going to be beneficial to somebody, and not something that could hurt them or be something that could be really, detrimental or change the trajectory of their lives. It wasn't intended, right? You get somebody off track. So just something to be thinking about if you give advice to people.